It's time!
What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin Fights. I'm Keith, joined by the incredible, the handsome, the stupendous, three's enough adjectives, Tom. Tom, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Fights last night didn't, I actually probably should have worn some mittens, an overcoat, maybe a hat. Went 4-5. That's kind of why I have the hangover shades on, I guess. A little bit disappointed in myself, views going, but either way, not great. But if history plays its part and does what, or if things end up going the way history, has said they would, we're due to get hot here soon. Not usually too cold for too long. How you doing, Keith?
I'm good, in a similar position as you from last night. But I am also legitimately hungover. It was a wild night out there. Just the weather's nice, so things get crazy. But, in terms of the fights, similar position as well. So not a great night for me. But you're right, though. Historically, when we've had like a little bit of an off night, we usually come back the following week and, end up looking like some of the best handicappers on MMA Twitter. So speaking of Twitter, just want to make mention, please follow us. Our names are right below our handsome faces. Follow our individual Twitters. And then also follow us on Twitter and Instagram, the main page @_PickinWinners. There's also @PickinFights on Instagram. Comment, subscribe to this content. Sorry, I think we were both hitting the banner at the same time.
I'll let you take it.
Yeah, so like this here, comment down below. We do respond to your comments while we're talking. Subscribe here and also over on Spotify. We are on Spotify. We have been for a few weeks. If you find that you don't have the time to sit here and watch a full video, or you're driving and the video is distracting or whatnot, well, you can just listen to this in audio form now as well. So make sure to check that out. And please, if you like our stuff, subscribe, give it likes. We really appreciate that. So we've got this card, UFC San Diego, which is Spanish for whale's vagina. That's a Ron Burgundy anchorman right there, I think. That's what he says, right? Anyways, yeah, San Diego. So we've got Marlon Vera, a.k.a. Chito, versus Dominick Cruz in the main event. Looking forward to that fight. That was announced a couple months ago. But, we're going to kick it off, as we always do, with our prelim locks or prelim notables, depending on how strongly we feel about these. So I am going to kick it off with the first fight between my first prelim notable, Angela Hill versus Lupita Godinez, Lupi. First off, this one's probably going to go the distance. These are two women who tend to go the distance in their fights. But I'm a big fan of Lupi, and that's who I'm going with here. She is a favorite in this one. I believe it's like, I'm going to check it out right now. And it's not on Tapology. So I'm going to continue talking instead and just tell you how much I like Lupi. Super active last year. She fought once on December 9th, then fought December 16th, and then fought again November 20th or something like that. She's super active. And she set a record, I believe, for the most women's fights in the shortest span of time last year. But not only is she active, but she's pretty good too. She has wins over women like Loma Lookboonmee. And, and Loma was a incredible kickboxer before the UFC. She has a win over Ariane Carnelossi, both decisions over there. Actually has a loss to Luana Carolina, but, I'd like to chalk that one up to, that was the one that she fought a week before she had an armbar win over Silvana Gomez Juarez. I've been impressed with Lupi, and honestly, she's got a cool personality too. Just overall fun fighter to watch, good person to support. And I will be supporting her this week by taking her as a prelim lock to win by decision. I like that pick a lot. What do you think of that, Tom? And what do you got?
Yeah, I know last week, last weekend, or I guess as it is today, yesterday, UFC kind of did us in the John Mahal versus Thiago Santos card about the women's fights going the distance. Every single fight on that card was finished within the distance. I believe there was 2 or 3 women's fights on there too, so that did a little bit compromise that theory that many women's fights go the distance. But at the end of the day, we were winning so much with it that I'm not ready to dive away from it just yet. And Lupe Godinez versus Angela Overkill Hill was one that I had circled for going the distance, and one that I'm going to take this week as well. One of my personal locks that I have going into this one is Jason Witt is going to get knocked out by Josh Quinlan. The reason for that is Witt, over his last few bouts, has been knocked out quite a bit. And Quinlan is a guy who gets a lot of knockouts. Following his Dana White Contender Series knockout victory, he actually ends up testing positive for a steroid, being suspended 9 months, or fined about $750. Came back, was supposed to fight last week on the Santos versus Hill card, ended up actually testing positive again for trace amounts of a steroid or performance-enhancing drug. And they, instead of suspending him, now I know that there is a potential for, with the Nevada State Athletic Committee, they set their, they set the threshold for what you could test positive a little bit lower than other places, allowing for those kind of, after it cycled out, allowing for it to still, have chase amounts in there. Either way, they ended up, instead of just getting Josh Quinlan out, they just moved the fight next week to San Diego. I think Quinlan, because he has big power, he has a big right, and Jason Witt has been knocked out from the right side before. I think this is a perfect stylistic matchup for Josh Quinlan. It's a terrible matchup for Jason Witt. The fact that they're moving the fight around to make sure that it happens, and Quinlan's still testing positive for roids and being a jacked guy, having that power to lean on. I'm picking him as a lock this week. What do you think?
I like that pick a lot. And, important to keep in mind that they did move it to California for, all those steroid testing positive reasons. Bellator, their home state is California. And, there are a lot of fighters over there in Bellator that look pretty unnatural. So, maybe California is a little bit more lax on all that stuff. I like the pick a lot. I like the knockout pick. That is a bold pick, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Like you said, Jason Witt has gotten put to sleep quite a few times. So I like that pick. My next one is going to be the Jamaican sensation, Ode Osborne versus Tyson Nam. And I like Ode Osborne. He's like a minus 200-ish favorite in this fight. But I've been impressed by him in the past. I think he's exciting. He's creative. He's had some fun wins, some fun knockouts. And, Tyson Nam, I just don't think that, stylistically, competition-wise, he really brings the same things to the table as, an Ode Osborne and the guys that Ode Osborne has fought. He had a loss to Matt Schnell, split decision. Now, while Matt Schnell is, he's solid, and we've had, some fun experiences with him. If you want to be something in this division, you've got to beat Matt Schnell. Other than that, he has a couple of losses to some notable names, Sergio Pettis, KKF, but, none of them were really, they didn't really show us anything. And I think Ode Osborne is a guy that's showed us, how creative and how fun and how strong he is in that division. And clearly he showed Vegas something as well to be sitting at a minus 200 favorite. Don't know if it's, how it's going to end, but I do like the Jamaican sensation as a parlay leg for this weekend. What do you think of that one, Senor Tom?
Yeah, that one I'm not as high on. I do like Ode Osborne a lot, especially, in the post-fight. Ode. I think he's really, really fun. I think he's got a fun style. That being said, both of these guys knocked out Zaruk Adeshev. That's the guy that, Ode had kind of stamped his name and put himself on the scene for. That being said, I'm just a little bit nervous about some of the speed coming back from Tyson Nam, and the experience. His last losses, he does have the loss to the split decision over Matt Schnell. He won his 2 previous, but then when you go back, you have the loss to Kai Kara France, the unanimous decision, and going the distance with Sergio Pettis. And then we talked a lot about how Kai Kara France is much improved, even though he lost to Brandon Moreno, much improved even following this fight. But at 38 years old, Tyson Nam, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach, and then you have Ode Osborne, the Jamaican sensation, coming in here with a 4-inch reach advantage, and probably going to be the bigger guy in there all around. At 30 years old and being younger, I think he's definitely the safer pick. Now, are you taking this one as what you would call a lock?
This is more of a notable, personally. Yeah,
Okay,
definitely more of a notable in this one.
Yeah, I would definitely tend to lean a little bit more on the notable side. That this is going to be interesting, and a good test for Ode Osborne. He beat a guy like Tyson Nam after being in the UFC for a little bit. At 38 years old, it's not the best version of him potentially, but what he lacks in maybe physical attribute can make up for with experience there. So for those reasons, yeah, I'm with you. I think Ode Osborne's going to take this one, and it's definitely one that I would watch regardless of the outcome.
The experience is definitely on Nam's side, but the age is on Ode's side, and I think the power is on Ode's side as well. You got any other prelim notables, locks that you want to send our way?
Yeah, there's actually one more that I wanted to go ahead and talk about, and that is Martin Buday and his fight against Brzezinski, really Lukasz Brzezinski, I believe it is, taking on Martin Buday in what I believe is going to be the main event of the undercard. Now, Brzezinski, I've been a little bit concerned about his previous the competition he's faced. Coming into this fight, they have him at a 78-inch reach versus Buday's 77-inch reach. These guys are going to be largely very similar, except for the fact that Buday is much, much bigger in terms of his frame, coming in at 265 pounds in the last fight, and Brzezinski at 235. So I think Buday is a lot bigger, and I also think he's a lot better of a fighter all around. Brzezinski, I know we just talked about Josh Quinlan and the roids, but Brzezinski actually got off seemingly the roids prior to his UFC debut on the Dana White Contender Series. Knocked out his he rear naked choked Dylan Potter, and then following that was actually switched over to a no contest because he still popped for, like I said, those trace amounts. A little bit of a view of the disparity of like what the UFC will show, like somebody who they think is going to be a top contender and just kind of move your fight to the following week in a different state versus, in this case, popping after the fact. I know it's a little bit different, but still popping after the fact, taking away a win from him, which was a finish, and UFC does like finishes. But if you take a look at Brzezinski's like just overall body type from before he was in the UFC and then now when he's in the UFC, it's completely different. He was ripped. He looked like he was carved from wood. He was a solid looking guy with a six pack, and now he looks a lot flubbier. He's lighter. I just think that getting off of the sauce, he's not going to have some of the success that he's had outside of the UFC when he was on steroids. And even that, looking at his competition, a lot of them are a little iffy to begin with. Not that Martin Buday has phenomenal competition, but 1-1 after a decent, handful of people, went to a decision with Chris Barnett. I think that would probably be one of the hardest opponents that Brzezinski had fought. So moving to that decision where, Chris Barnett kind of just gave up a little bit. Getting the knockout over Lorenzo Hood on the Contender Series, and then overall just his fights before that, fighting people 7-1, 5-3, prior to the UFC. I think Buday is just overall a better fighter at this point. So I'm going to take him as a lock on the main event of the undercard of UFC San Diego.
Solid pick, my man. Very solid pick. I like Buday in that fight. So we're going to move on up to the main card now. And this is a bit of a, weird one, tough one to pick, mainly because of who's in it. And, that's always why it's tough. But, we've got Yazmin Jauregui versus Yazmin Lucindo. And both of these women are making their UFC debut in this fight. So we don't have, like, a lot of the, statistics that we could typically fall back on. Like UFC fighters in 2022, God bless you, are struggling in their debut. But both of these women are making their debut, so we can't fall back on that. It looks like Yazmin with a Y has some finishes on her record, recent finishes. It looks like her last two, I believe, were TKO victories. So, we can't really fall back on who's going to win this one by decision because it looks like maybe she has a little bit of power in her hands. But I think Yazmin with a Y, and this is something we spoke about before we came on, has fought the more legitimate competition. She fought over there in Combate which is a pretty legitimate, I believe, Brazilian promotion out there. And then, you look at Yazmin with an I and Lucindo, and she kind of bounced around promotions. Looks like maybe she has a little bit of a more padded record. So, well, actually, no, she's 13-4. So maybe she's fought, some legit competition, or I don't know, maybe she's just over there getting her ass beat by some people that suck. Either way, I'm going to go with Yazmin with a Y. This one's just kind of, picking with gut here. So, plus she's like a slight favorite with Vegas, and, they don't like to lose money. So I'm going to side with Vegas on this one and take Yazmin with a Y with the last name that starts with a J, which I look forward to hearing probably Brendan Fitzpatrick say this weekend for the first time. What do you got for that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I would lay my money that it's going to be Brendan Fitzgerald, maybe, is it, or Fitzpatrick? But it's definitely going to be Brendan for sure. I don't think John Anik is going unless John Anik wants to sightsee over in San Diego. There's probably better places for him to go. But yeah, I'm rolling with you. Yazmin with a Y, I think, is going to get this done. Looking back at her competition, I think she's faced a lot more of the stiffer competition, did a little bit of a better promotion, or not a little bit, a significantly better promotion in Combate. And then you look at Yazmin with an I, bounced around in promotions. I think over her last 5 fights, she's been in 5 different promotions. Up until this point, I think looking at her record at 13-4, she's been in a lot of fights that have counted, but her record is not against a lot of different fighters who are have high records for themselves. And a lot of them, if you click into them and actually see where they are now, it's not like they're going on to do big things. These are women who fought maybe one fight following the win or the loss to Yazmin with an I. So not totally thrilled on the amount of competition that Yazmin has faced to this point. They have both a little bit of a weakness on the ground against better ground competition. But that being said, I think it's going to be a stand-up fight. Yazmin with a Y has far better stand-up competition and had better results. She had less fights, but she started in 2018, where Yazmin with an I started in 2017. And I think Yazmin with a Y, being 3 years older, I don't know if that's going to count much, but I think the fact that Yazmin with an I, bouncing around to a bunch of different promotions, the UFC going to be the far biggest that she's fought under at 20 years old. Potentially the moment could get to her a little bit more than maybe someone who's a little bit older and fought in a bigger promotion like Combate, maybe a little bit more used to the lights and everything going on. So I'm going to go with Yazmin for a variety of different reasons there, but both of these women making their UFC debut, it could really be a chance of anything in there. I would lean decision, as I tend to always do.
Yeah, I guess like by definition, super lock, but this isn't one that we're like both really confident on, so not really a super lock. All right, we're gonna move up to the next fight, which is another one that I don't know if anybody's particularly excited for, except for maybe the women in this fight and their families. We've got Nina Nunes versus Cynthia Calvillo. And this is another one that's like pretty tough because, I'm also not confident in either one of these women. Nina Nunes, you have your rule. I kind of stand by your rule, especially in this, in this case, when it comes to spouses. We all know Nina Nunes is the lesser of the Nuneses in the UFC. She's not particularly great. She does her thing. She's there. She gets into the octagon when she has to and fights. So I'll give her credit for that. But she's had some recent losses. She got a armbarred by Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern, really great jiu-jitsu. But I think I'm going to lean towards Cynthia Calvillo. And this is despite the fact that she lost her last 3. Jessica Andrade and Caitlin Chookagian are very forgivable losses. Caitlin Chookagian sitting up there at the top of that division and just basically playing the ultimate gatekeeper at the number 1 spot. Jessica Andrade, we all know she's like a little angry pit bull. So those are forgivable losses. And then her wins are over some solid competition. She does have wins over Joanne Calder-Wood, Montana De La Rosa, Jillian Robertson, and then way back in the day, a win over Aspen Ladd, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, I'm just going to roll with Cynthia Calvillo. MMA math is a tricky business. It's one of the harder maths out there. I barely passed calculus, so MMA math is not close to calculus, but I just suck at math. So I just think in this situation I'm gonna have to roll Cynthia Calvillo. Both of these women are pretty balanced fighters. Yeah, tough fight to pick. I'm just gonna go with Cynthia Calvillo here. I don't know. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go the opposite way. First, I want to talk a little bit about Cynthia Calvillo. I mean, this is a woman who quit on the stool after 2 rounds with Angia Lee. She got a lot of praise from the commentators being like, yeah, no, I think we need to see more people quit on the stool. And I'm like, I don't know. If you're willing to quit on the stool, be like, yeah, I've had enough. That's basically you saying like, yeah, I don't think even in this 3rd round, I'm going to beat this woman. And I just don't know if that's the competition and the mindset that you want to have and then continue fighting. Like I get, I talked a little bit about like GSP, and I talked a little bit about Amanda Nunes, how they, just kind of realized when they lost, they tapped and they got out and they came back better. But I don't think that's the same type of mindset or person that we're talking about. We're talking about Cynthia Calvillo. So I don't like the fact that she quit on the stool, even though, health-wise, that may make sense. But when you're talking about your mentality going into a fight, being a UFC fighter and fighting for a living, that peeks behind the curtain at a potential bigger problem there for me, and I don't particularly like that. Cynthia Calvillo, of course, is a striker. She throws her standard jump in 1-2, where you see her ha, and then she comes back, and then she walks around for a little bit 1-2, ha, and then comes back. So it's nothing that's too dynamic. She gets flustered when she gets hit a lot, and trust me, she does get hit a lot. She can be finished. She's an okay grappler, but ultimately she wants to avoid that. She wants to stay on the feet. She's gonna throw, she'll throw a takedown attempt in there if she thinks, things are really going bad for her on the feet. But at that point, it's a desperation attempt and nothing, too substantial. Nina Nunes, also a striker. The ground is a real problem for her. She doesn't like being on her back. In her last, few fights in which she's lost to pretty decent competition, looking back at it, they've all been really good wrestlers as well, grapplers. So, there's been a game plan to beating Nina Nunes, and that's take her to the ground and keep her on the ground. Something that I don't think Cynthia Calvillo will be able to follow. And even though she's gotten 3 losses in her back-to-back fights, Nina Nunes did, they were all against grapplers. And on the feet, she did particularly well there. So I think she's actually going to have the better stand-up in this fight between her and Cynthia Calvillo. She's got good cardio. She's got good kicks. She's stunned Tatiana Suarez in the 3rd round of their fight. She looked good versus Claudia Gadelha. And, I really think she's a better – and I think Claudia Gadelha is a better version of what Cynthia Calvillo is. So having all of these kind of, I guess, facts or my opinions, I really want to lean with Nunes. I think in this, what I think is going to be a stand-up battle, I think Nina, can get it done. She's done well on her feet. She's had good striking. She's had good kicks. She's not much of a finisher, but I don't think that Calvillo is going to take her to the ground and be able to dominate her on the ground for 3 straight rounds. And I don't think Nunes is all that bad on the ground when she's against, people who are also of, decent caliber. When she's of people who are all right on the ground. I think, her being a purple belt back in 2018, I'm not sure what she's progressed to at this point, but she's going to have somewhat of a ground game. She's not going to be totally inept there. I don't think Calvillo is particularly strong there. And then the last piece I will say, that's a bit of a toss-up here. She just finished camp with Amanda Nunes. So either she was in camp with her and she's going to come out and be a really, really great version because she's been training with the champ who had something to prove, or she's had to take more of the, parental responsibilities, hasn't been training, and, this is going to be a shock to her system. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but given her ability, her standing ability, and the kind of grappling inefficiencies of both of these women, I'm going to leave with Nina Nunes to take this as the underdog.
Yeah, really solid pick. Solid logic. I personally won't be touching it with my wallet whatsoever, except for maybe the fight to go the distance. I don't really feel particularly good about either one of those. Truly bet it. But this next one, I do feel a little bit better about. There are still some questions because one of the guys is pretty new and one of the guys is pretty old. Excuse me. Oof. All right. All right. So we've got, it just had to get that out. I have a frog in my throat today, as the people say. We got Devin Clark versus Azamat Murzakanov. And I'm leaning towards Murzakanov because he does look to be a really exciting, fun, creative stand-up fighter. And there are still some questions because this is his sophomore appearance in the UFC, but it looks like he's just super powerful for a light heavyweights typically are pretty powerful, but he's potentially on that upper echelon of power. Just knocking guys out left and right. That's his game plan. It's just go in there, be fun and knock dudes out. He had a flying knee victory over Tafon and Chukwi in his debut back in March. That was exciting. The flying knee is always fun to watch, especially close to the end of the fight, the way that he did it. And then, one victory in the contender series, early right hook, just put a dude to sleep, Mateus Scheffel. But, exciting stuff to see. He's not the most active guy. It looks like he fights maybe once a year, twice a year if we're lucky. But against a guy like Devin Clark, who's, he's been at it a long time, and he's fought some of the best light heavyweights that we have to offer in the UFC. He's got losses to a lot of them. Won his last fight against William Knight, had a loss to Jan Kudalaba by decision, which isn't super great. Getting choked out by Anthony Smith, win over Alonzo Menafield. Okay, that's decent. I mean, this is a good test for Murzakanov, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, against a guy like Devin Clark, who's fought everybody. He's fought Jan Blachowicz, and Devin Clark has been knocked out before. It was Alexander Rakic that put him to sleep with spinning back fist to ground and pound, I believe it was, and, just beat the snot out of him there. But, so it's not like Devin Clark has a super vulnerable chin, but when it comes to a guy that's very, very creative, and has a little bit of a presence about him, only fights once a year, and when he does, he goes in there and just knocks guys out. I think there's a good chance that is the inevitable, well, not inevitable, but there's a good chance that it's the outcome this week, that Devin Clark is getting put to sleep by Murzakanov. The creativity is huge. A guy that's going to go in there and knock someone out with a flying knee, confident enough to leave the ground and, not
in
get
the third round too.
Huh?
In the third round too.
Yeah, at the end of the fight, late there too. So, I'm excited to see Murzakanov at minus 175 favorite. Devin Clark is a tenured guy, so it's a legit test for him, but I think he'll get it done this week. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, for Azamat Murzakanov, he's obviously doesn't have the wealth of UFC experience that Devin Clark does. Devin Clark, of course, not in his last fight, but his fight before that, got his actual gums separated from his jaw, which was one of the more gruesome injuries I've ever seen. Electing, that happened at the end of the second round to a knee, electing to continue fighting that out in the third round, kind of going, well, the damage is done. So, you think you want to be a fighter, that probably would have made me reevaluate my profession right there on the stool. That being said, he's got really, really big thighs. He fought at heavyweight at his last time out. Ended up getting the KO there, but at the end of the day, Devin Clark is a stand-up guy. He's got pretty decent grappling ability. He's got the USA wrestling tattooed on his shin or his calf, whichever one, depending on whatever. Not important. He likes to throw straight punches. Those are his specialty. That's really kind of what unlocks the rest of his stand-up. He's also a big teep kicker, big user of the teep kicks to keep distance from his opponents. He's taken a lot of damage over his career, especially his last few fights. Like I said, getting his gums legitimately knocked out. USA wrestler. He's got good speed, and he trains at Elevation Fight Team out there in Colorado, so his cardio is not going to be something to really be concerned at. Like I said, he fought William Knight in his last fight at heavyweight, in which case he ended up getting he did get the knockout, but he left his chin exposed a lot and was really just lucky that William Knight didn't have a long enough reach to be able to hit him. Devin Clark was able to use his reach advantage to knock out White and touch Knight before Knight really had the chance to come back. For Azamat Murzakanov, he's also going to have a reach disadvantage to Devin Clark here. Murzakanov fights out of Fairfield, New Jersey. He's got big left hands and overhands, followed up by the right hook, especially. If he can touch you with that left hand, stun you, he can put you down with the right hook. He did that in his UFC opening debut. He's really good in and out movement, constantly moving around the cage. The third round flying knee was his first time in the third round. I think all of his fights up until that point have been first round knockouts at that. He's got a very good first round finish for Andre Muniz. A long time ago, he's got a first round finish to get into the UFC off Dana White's Contender Series. He uses a lot of feints to set up his power left. So a lot of this movement here. So you're going to see a lot of movement of him circling around the cage, coming in and out. And I think because of that, he is able to kind of negate a lot of those reach issues that he has against other guys. Azamat has had tank issues before, like in that fight with Kennedy Nzechukwu. I mean, he did by the second round look exhausted. He was able to muster up a perfectly placed, flying knee, which I think maybe just shows that he's able to think intelligently even at an exhausted state. But it still wasn't great knowing him and his style and how active it is that he was showing to wear, especially against a guy like Devin Clark, who's shown that he doesn't have the ability to do that. All in all, I think Clark tries to tie him up and take him down, but with Azamat's left hand and Clark's accumulating like knockouts that he's had in the most recent fights of his career, I think Azamat really only has to catch him once, just to show them that he can kind of do it, and then Clark is going to be a little bit more timid for the rest of the fight. I think that Murzakanov is going to be able to counter a lot of the straights that are coming from Devin Clark. Devin Clark going to shoot the straight, and if Murzakanov can get out of the way in kind of the stand-up striking style that he has in the past, I think he'll be able to land that left hand and put down Devin Clark. But I will say, the further this fight goes on, the more I think it leans towards Devin Clark. So I'm going to take Azamat Murzakanov. I'm going to take him to actually get the finish in the first or the second round. Actually, you know what? No. I'm going to take Azamat Murzakanov. I think he wins the first round. I think he gets close in the second round, and Devin Clark wins the third round, and it's going to be a 29-28 decision towards Devin Clark. Ooh. Or Azamat Murzakanov, sorry. Azamat Murzakanov.
I like it. We've been seeing those 29-28s popping up a lot recently. I like that pick a lot. Murzakanov, I think he's going to get it done this week. And, Devin Clark does tend to, come to life a little bit later on. So that makes a lot of sense that he would win the third round, especially as Murzakanov starts to gas a little bit. This next fight is the one I'm looking forward to the most outside of the main event. I'm a fan of both of these guys. We've got GM3, Gerald Meerschaert versus Bruno Silva. And Bruno Silva, he had a really good fight his last time around against really good competition against Alex Pereira. And he put up, a nice fight in that one, really. He was fighting mixed martial arts as opposed to Alex Pereira, who was looking to do what he does best and kickbox a little bit. Bruno Silva is intelligent. He was doing a lot of things that surprised Pereira in that one. And Pereira, we've seen, he's a solid fighter. He's a good UFC fighter. Gerald Meerschaert, on the other hand, great grappler. He's not bad on his feet. A lot of people have this image in their mind of Gerald Meerschaert because of, the highlight of him that's been passed around the most, which is that quick finish by Azamat of Gerald Meerschaert. That was really Hamzat's coming out party. But this is a tough fight to pick just because, both men are adept at mixed martial arts. And, I think ultimately when it comes down to it, though, Bruno Silva has the potential to eke out a decision victory, I think, over Meerschaert. I mean, Meerschaert, his grappling is great jiu-jitsu player. It's definitely a tough one. I don't think Bruno Silva is going to try and go to the ground with Meerschaert like he tried to with Pereira, because that would be really dumb. But I do think he's better on his feet than Meerschaert. Meerschaert's going to be trying to take it to the ground, and I think Bruno Silva is just defensive enough against submissions to, avoid the types of positions that Meerschaert's going to try and put him in. So I'm going to go with Bruno Silva in this one. I think he's going to do more damage on the feet and avoid going to the ground with Gerald Meerschaert as much as possible. Because even if Meerschaert does take him to the ground, there is still a high chance that he controls Bruno Silva for, close to 15 minutes and wins it just by decision time alone, control time alone. So I'm going to lean towards Bruno Silva. I think he's pretty intelligent. Meerschaert's good, but I don't think that Bruno Silva is going to let him do the things that he wants to do. And Bruno Silva is going to be in control of this fight when it comes to the pace and to what level the fight takes place on. What do you think of this one, Tom?
I think this is a lot closer than what the people on Tapology would have you believe. I think something like 85% of the votes on Tapology, close to 700 votes, are on Bruno Silva. Most of those by knockout. Here's the deal. I don't think Bruno Silva is very good on the ground. And I don't think you'd fight or kind of get a lot of pushback if you said that amongst the knowledgeable crowd. He can put away kind of lower level competition, but I don't think when it gets to people, even on GM3's level, that he's going to have as much success as he has against the lower caliber opponents. Bruno Silva, the way that he wins fights is a lot of times that he's capitalizing on his opponent's mistakes, something that I'm not going to think GM3 is going to do a ton of at this point. He kind of got ragdolled by Sanchez in his fight with him. I just don't think Bruno Silva, and I've watched, a bunch of his fights going back, a couple years now. I just think that a weakness for him is really on the ground. Against lower level guys, like I said, he can defend himself well, but GM3, especially when it comes to the ground, I don't think is a lower level guy. So I think that's going to be an opportunity for him there. But I will say Bruno Silva does have a good chin, and he does have really good cardio, but he doesn't have the best striking IQ. He leaves himself open and gets hit when he's on the feet. GM3, I think GM3's striking is getting better, but by far his bread and butter is going to be the ground game. He's a good jiu-jitsu player. He's another one kind of similar to Paul Craig, where he will pull guard if he has to in order to get on the ground. He lost to a few guys lately, but a lot of them are top-tier guys. You look, Jack Hermanson, Kevin Holland. You look at a couple other guys that he's fought, Kamzat, right? You're looking, at the top-level guys, and he's fought and beaten other, good level guys, Ian Heinisch and Eric Anders. I think those are actually both losses too. But again, he's not losing to just any guys. He's losing to the guys who are in the upper echelon, top 10, top 5 of the division here. So GM3, he specializes on the ground. I think he's very good at submissions. He doesn't have the worst stand-up. He's got decent kicks, but he uses it to get his way to the ground. He's a very high risk-reward fighter. He's kind of in that finish or be finished state. He's shown the ability to fight well and submit off of his back. And he can also land some short shots on the feet. I think basically he's going to use that. He's going to use his kicks. He's going to try and get in close with Bruno Silva. He's going to take it to the ground. And if he can get it to the ground, this fight steers a lot more into GM3's, wheelhouse. He can be tired on the ground and still throw up submissions and find ways to win, especially against a guy who's not used to being there on the ground. Looking at Tapology, I want to know if they're going to give me the odds for – excuse me. They're going to give me the odds for this fight. GM3 is a plus 220 underdog. Being that Silva has that weakness on the ground, I kind of want to lay a little bit on GM3. I don't think he's that bad on the feet. I think he's got good fighting IQ. And then, you kind of look back at his losses. Yeah, he lost to Krzysztof Jotko in a unanimous decision. But Krzysztof Jotko is another guy who wants to stand and bang with you on the feet. I think, the submission win, able to get it to the ground against Dustin Stoltzfus in the second round. Makhmud Muradov, another rear naked submission. And against Fabianski, another power guillotine submission. His last loss before that was Khamzat Chimaev. I just think GM3 has fought a decent level of competition, better than Bruno Silva. I think Bruno Silva's fighting guys like the Beverly Hills Ninja and getting wins over them, those aren't things to be particularly proud of. So I'm going with GM3. It's a contrarian pick, but it's where I stand right now.
Yeah, no, fair enough. We both made very different arguments, but we'll see how this one pans out on Saturday. So now we've got David Onama versus Nate Landwehr in the co-main event. And I'm rolling with David Onama. Only 2 fights in the UFC. But when I think of David Onama, I just think strength. He's another very powerful guy. And he showed in his last one against Garrett Armfield. He does have some jiu-jitsu in his arsenal. Nothing super crazy, arm triangle choke on the ground, but definitely impressive. And then you look at Nate Landwehr, and whenever I think of Nate Landwehr, I just remember he lost to Herbert Burns, and Herbert Burns is the ultimate example of when you've got a really good brother like Gilbert, and then you have Herbert who's just pretty miserable. I'll never be able to bet on Nate Landwehr going forward. That's my biggest thing. Herbert Burns is just he's 9-2, but he's very unimpressive. There's one loss that sticks out to me from Herbert Burns. I can't remember who exactly it was, but it's just, it's Nate Landwehr. You can't get beat by Herbert Burns. Enough shitting on Herbert Burns. Also has a win over Ludovic Klein. Klein doesn't really have the best jiu-jitsu, and Nate Landwehr locked up an anaconda choke against him. You got Julian Erosa knocking Nate Landwehr out. Don't really want to get knocked out by Julian Erosa, not on the upper echelon. And then a decision win over the Danger. I think David Onama in the long term is going to be one of these guys that's, he's going to keep moving up in the division. He's going to keep impressing people. I think Nate Landwehr is just another stepping stone for him. Nate Landwehr his chin isn't super cracked yet, but I don't think that his chin is going to be able to put up with the the strength that David Onama brings to the table. If this fight goes to the ground, I think Nate Landwehr, probably has a slight advantage, but I think both of these guys are going to try and keep it standing, and David Onama is ultimately going to come out on top. Probably a right hook to Nate Landwehr's chin and just put him to sleep. I don't know. What do you think about this one, Tom?
I agree with everything you said except for the right hook. I think it's going to be a left hook. David Onama, he gets hit. He switched stances a lot, but we haven't seen a lot of chin issues from him as of late. And he's got he throws hard every time he throws, but especially when he's throwing that left hand, he can definitely put you out. He's got really good combinations, especially when the opponent's hurt. He smells blood in the water and he rushes after you. His last opponent took the fight on short notice, but David Onama was able to show that his grappling has been getting a little bit better as he's progressed through his UFC kind of career and hierarchy or whatever. It's still his weaker point. He can leave his hips open at times to get kind of be taken down. However, I don't think that that's going to be a big problem against Nate Landwehr, who's an aggressive fighter. He makes mistakes. He also leaves his chins out there. He's a guy that will take one to give one, likes to get in, firefights. And because of that, I think he's going to have a little bit of a power disadvantage against David Onama. I think he's also going to have a chin disadvantage against David Onama. And that's not what you want. Nate Landwehr has been put out recently with 2 flying knee KOs, so that's showing that he leaves his chin out there to be kneed. I don't know if David Onama is going to go out there and use the same knee, but I think he's going to find his left hand on that piece of chinked glass that is Nate Landwehr's chin, and I think we're going to get a knockout win from David Onama.
Yeah, totally agree. David Onama, like I said, when you think of him, you just think strength. So now we've got the main event. Yeah, super lock. Sorry, I put that away too quick. That is a super lock. I don't know about you, but I feel pretty confident about that Onama pick.
I do. I like Onama.
Yeah, I like Onama. He's going to keep doing big things.
Cut to him losing.
Huh?
Cut to him losing after we both oh, yeah, I'm really confident on him, this and that.
Yeah, hope that doesn't happen. We've got the main event now. We've got Chito Vera versus Dom Cruz. And I'm rolling with Dominick. No, I'm just kidding. I'm taking Chito Vera. I don't know how anybody could go any other way in this fight. Dominick Cruz, I mean, yeah, sure. Like Dominick Cruz, he's an all-time great. But, it's very, very, very similar to, a lot of these light heavyweights, like an Anthony Smith type of guy, where I think the division is almost not entirely surpassed Dominick Cruz. He can still get it done. Notoriously incredible footwork. But I just think the level of competition is rising up around him, and he's sort of staying stagnant at the moment. I'm hoping he doesn't prove me, wrong on Saturday. But you look at Chito Vera and just the dominant wins that he's had in his past couple fights. That front kick knockout of Frankie Edgar and Rob Font in his last fight. Rob Font looked like an entirely different person. You want to talk about rearranging somebody's face? That's exactly what Chito did to Rob Font. Rob Font looked like he was stung by a million bees by the end of that fight. Just swollen beyond belief. I don't think it's going to be as dominant over Dominick Cruz as it was Rob Font. I think this one has the potential to go the distance because of the head movement of these two guys, and their ability to both take damage. But I think Chito Vera is just going to be the faster of the two guys. He's more creative. He can do it all. And I think at this stage in his career, he's more powerful than Dominick Cruz. I think he's going to leave Dominick Cruz's face just, a little bit busted up, broken and bloody. So I'm rolling with Chito here. That the head movement, the creativity, the ability to switch body, head, leg kick, and do it in a way that keeps his opponents guessing. Dominick Cruz has fought some of the greats, but I think his time is probably coming to an end. He does have title aspirations. Both of these men do. But I think Chito Vera on his way up, Dominick Cruz flatlined. What do you think, Tom? What do you got about this one?
Yeah, so before we get into that, I just want to say to everybody watching, thank you for watching and sticking with us this far. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you're thinking of our picks so far and overall. If you've been with us for a week, a couple months, or all year, let us know where you're at and if we've helped you, hurt you, or what else. Moving on to the main event of this fight, or the main event of this fight night card. I mean, I think this one's also going to be a really, really interesting fight. It's a banger of a fight, to be honest with you. You have Dominick the Dominator Cruz, who moves in and out very quickly, and he pivots himself. He provides himself he's like he'll give you a 1-2 and then he'll be out of range so that it really provides him the ability to hit his opponents and then not be there when they have the I guess wherewithal to fire back at him. It's hard to land counters on Dominick Cruz because he's so unpredictable. He's worked on this 8-step. This weird 8-step, very unique footwork for himself that leaves him almost always out of the way of any punch coming back. That being said, he isn't unable to be hit. Pedro Nunes was able to hit him early in the fight, but the thing about Dominick Cruz is he gets better as the fight goes on. He's got an insane gas tank, and because of that unique technique, he is able to find himself in positions, especially later in the fight where his opponents are a little bit more tired, a little bit slower, where Dominick can definitely take over. He moves well. He's got the ability to change positions. Like I said, he does a good job at avoiding damage historically, but like I talked about earlier, he's gotten clipped by Pedro Nunes in the past. He did a really good job at recovering. He was faster than Pedro, but as the fight goes on, he throws a lot of strikes that accumulate, and that kind of just speaks to his overall stamina. If you can beat up his legs, though, if you could beat up the legs of Dominick Cruz, you might provide yourself a little bit of a better chance because now he's not able to be as agile and move around your strikes as much. Moving over to Marlon Chito Vera, he has hard and fast kicks, and he also, too, gets better as the fight goes on. I mean, just looking at the Rob Font fight, the first round you could probably put to Rob Font, but then every round after that, Marlon Vera is either about to finish Rob Font at the end of the second, third, and fourth round, or he's just absolutely annihilating. And Rob Font looked like he was wearing a Halloween mask at the end of that fight. So I really like what Marlon Vera, and Marlon Vera, by the way, getting ready for the fifth round, is sitting there, looking at his wrist, going like, "Come on, let's go." The bell rang, and Rob Font is being almost pulled off of the stool, and he's a tough guy from New England. So it's not like Rob Font is going to be slow to get off the stool for just anybody. So I think that says a lot. It says a lot about the cardio of Marlon Vera. He's always looking for things to do that can improve his standing, and that's going to carry over to the cage. He's running, 5Ks, 10Ks, running 6 miles casually. I really like the cardio from Marlon Vera. I think he hits hard for somebody in this division. And ultimately, I think he's going to be able to just be a better 2022 version of what we saw of Marlon Vera, but I think he's also kind of the next iteration of the Dominick Cruz, having that awkward style, being able to take damage, being the faster fighter, and then not being able to get hit later after you land your shots. I think Marlon Vera is everything that Dominick Cruz was. He's lacking some of the injuries that held Dominick Cruz back in his career. And at this point, Dominick Cruz coming in at 36 years old, we're not sure, especially because he relies on speed, being his specialty, his ability to react and move. As time goes on, that's one of the first things to go. So a little bit concerned about Dominick Cruz there and the time he spent outside of the cage. So for all of those reasons, I'm going with Marlon Chito Vera, making this a super lock.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that fight. The whole card itself is like a little mid, but that main event, and then there was a couple in there too that are awesome. Hey, thanks, Patrick. Really
love
appreciate
the new logo. Love the new logo.
Yeah, that's sweet, man. That's cool. I like that a lot. All right, so we're going to wrap up the episode as we always do with our pick rundown. So, starting with my prelim locks. Prelim notables. I've got Lupi Godinez over Angela Hill. That is a lock in my opinion. And then I've got Ode Osborne over Tyson Nam. For the main card, I've got Yazmin with a Y. Got Cynthia Calvillo. Not super confident about those two fights. Then I've got Azamat Murzakanov over Devin Clark. Leaning towards Bruno Silva over Gerald Meerschaert, but Gerald Meerschaert does have the ability to get that one done. I'm going with David Onama over Nate Landwehr. Feel pretty good about that one. And then I feel really good about Chito Vera over Dominick Cruz. Passing it over to you, Tom.
All right, so I'm going Josh Quinlan over Jason Witt. I like that one, especially by KO. Depends on what the odds are going to look like a little bit later on. Angela Hill, Lupi Godinez going the distance. Ode Osborne, I'll take him over Tyson Nam because Tyson Nam's getting a little bit older, and I like Ode's career trajectory here. And the very last prelim lock I got for you, I'm going to go with Martin Goudet over Lukasz Reszke. I just don't like the way he's looked. He hasn't really impressed when I've seen him lately, especially coming over into a promotion that has, should we just say, PED control. Moving up to the fight, I'm taking Yazmin with a Y over Yazmin with an I. I'm also going with the contrarian pick, Nina Nunes. I think she's been better on the feet than Cynthia Calvillo has been. I think it's going to be a standing battle. So I'm going with Nina Nunes to break the streak here. And again, in a time where most women's fights go the distance, in a time where that was just broken last week, I also think also Muhammad Usman, two siblings can't be good at the same time. He came out, he had a big left-hand counter knockout of Zach Pauga yesterday. So in a time where all of my rules are being broken, I'm going to go with Nina Nunes to get the win. I think Azamat Murzakanov is going to get the win, but I could also see Devin Clark sneaking in there. So depending on what Devin Clark is at, I think he's in the plus 200s. If he moves to plus 250 or more, I'm probably going to take him. I think if his chin can hang in there, I think he has a good shot to take the second, maybe the third round. Azamat, I think, is going to probably take the first. I'm going with GM3, another contrarian pick. I think he's better on the ground than Bruno Silva is. I think he has the ability to get it there, and he has the ability to submit people there. So I'm going with GM3 over Bruno Silva. I like David Onama over Nate Landwehr, getting back onto the favorite side of things. And finally, I'm going with Marlon Chito Vera over Dominick Cruz, but it's going to be a fantastic fight card. Well, I don't know. It's going to be, I think it's going to be pretty good. But there's not a lot of names. So, if you're not into this, knee deep, balls deep, waist deep, chest deep, like we are, it may not be the best card for you. But I enjoy watching anybody fight, so can't wait.
Yeah, facts. And, thank you to the fighters who go out there every week and, kill each other basically for our entertainment, just either beat each other up or get beat up. So, yeah, thank you for that. Thank you to everybody who stuck around this long, watched the whole video, or stuck with us live. Like, comment, and subscribe, please. Check us out over on Spotify as well. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Stay updated as to when we're going live. And yeah, that's all I got. So thank you, and thank you, Tom. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and get back to work Monday. Do whatever it is that you do tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your week. See you Saturday.
See you for the fights, guys. Enjoy the fights.